What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jerrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry, good
Throwing
morning.
us off. It's a good
Shut
morning.
up.
It's a nice. Well, not very
it's dark
necessarily.
outside.
Yeah, it is kind of nice and cloudy and overcast out there. But it's a Sunday morning here in Austin, Texas, where we're recording for you this brand new episode of Team Chat Podcast, a weekly video game show where we talk about games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. New episodes come out Tuesday, 9 a.m. Central Time, so you can listen to those across podcast services around the World Wide Web, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're pretty new on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and others. You can check out a full list at teamchatpodcast.com/where to listen. You can also watch a full episode, all the episodes on YouTube and Twitch, so check out all that. The links for all those are in the description below. Finally, we are a completely listener-supported show, so if you would like to help us build and further make this show bigger and better than what it already is, head over to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast. Whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show, and in return, we'll give you cool perks like getting the episodes early before their general Tuesday release and access to a patron-only channel on our Discord server, the Rogues Gallery. Speaking of Discord, you can also join our Discord server anytime you want, as well as give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and also, follow us on Instagram as well. Again, links for all that are in the description below, and you can find all that information for all of your viewing pleasure of Team Chat things across the internets. Now, before we get into our main topic, though, we do have to do our moment with Mogan to get a little bit of news
Indeed.
and catch up on what's been happening lately.
So as of this episode's air date, you may have missed just a couple of things that came out over the weekend. So this episode air date is February 5th.
Yes.
Today's 3rd. Yeah, so on February 1, Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown hit the PC. Wargroove for Switch also came out on February 1st. I'm
actually getting pretty interested in that one.
So Wargroove is getting a lot of buzz because apparently it's like a spiritual successor to the Advanced War game.
Which I've talked about. I love
and you love that kind of stuff.
I saw Jason Schreier from Kotaku tweeted it, and he's just like, it reminds me a lot of Advanced Wars. I was like, you had me.
Done.
Had me at Advanced Wars. I'm there.
That's the whole review. You didn't even have to say more than that. So Wargroove for the Switch. When I first saw the title, I was like, cool. So some sort of like rhythm dance based war game.
I had the same thought.
Not even remotely similar. Anyways, and as of this episode's air date on February 5th, we have Etrian Odyssey Nexus for the 3DS. There's also The Occupation for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And then coming out very soon on February 7th, Blaze Blue Central Fiction comes out for the Switch. And on February 8th, we have God Eater 3 for PS4 and PC. Also, Monster Energy Supercross 2 for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, all on February 8th.
There we go. Speaking of, another thing I did remember that I wanted to talk about that I was super excited about because this only broke literally last night. So Saturday
I may not have
night,
seen it. Don't spring stuff on me, man.
Oh no, that's all right. Because it caught me by surprise as well.
Heavens.
But tomorrow, so February 4th,
Guacamelee 1 and 2 Super Pack is coming
awesome.
to the Switch.
But no.
Damn it.
They're already both on Switch, I believe.
But as a pack.
Oh,
as
I
a
see.
Super
As a
pack.
combo. I got you. No, that's not it. Respawn, developers of Titanfall, are releasing a Battle Royale set in the Titanfall universe.
See, now that actually sounds kind of interesting because when I played what was it, like the demo?
Yeah, the tech test or something like that?
Was like
they didn't even call it like a demo or beta.
It was like an open beta. There we go. Anyways, when I played that for Titanfall, I was shit tier at it. But it already felt like a battle royale to me because I was like, the chaos. I don't know.
It is very
what's
chaotic.
happening.
The gameplay and gunplay of the game is very, very fun.
And then when you add in the mechs, it's just like chaos on chaos.
Well, so now here's the one thing that is a little bit odd about it. It will be free to play, so it's coming out Monday. You can just download it and play for PS4, PC, and Xbox. But the thing is, and that's got some people perturbed, which I don't understand, and wonder if the functionality will be added in later, but there are no Titans.
What?
Yeah.
The most fun part of the game isn't going to be in it?
I was kind of confused by that as well. But yeah.
That's so dumb.
That's what they're doing.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's coming out tomorrow. I'll play it tomorrow, I'll try to. I'll see what it's about. See how it stacks up compared to the Fortnites and the Blackouts.
Because the mechs are what make Titanfall.
I know it's a very pivotal. Although I will say they are a very big selling point for the Titanfall game because of how fun they are to pilot. But I will say though, the pilots by themselves, just the human or like robots that you can be pilots for the Titans, they're pretty fun to be also. Like it's no shortage of fun in that game. So even though it will be weird missing the Titans, I do wonder if like eventually they'll add them in or have like a special mode that's with Titans. Because Fortnite does that with their limited time events and different stuff like that. They'll do some changes that are outside of the norm of the game. So maybe they'll do like a Titan mode or something.
In my magical pipe dream of futures that will never happen, the Respawn, they gain the rights to they gain like co-rights, I guess, to every mech anime ever made, and then they just get to pile them all into one game, like Smash Bros. Style.
Kind of like the jump,
exactly.
Dragon Force Z.
It's like
Fighters
here's the peeps from Evangelion, here's all the Gundam people, here's everybody.
That'd be a pretty sweet game. All these giant robots duking it out. That'd be pretty tight.
That would be pretty awesome.
But also,
Respawn, get on it.
Yeah, seriously, and keep working on Titanfall 3 because let's not let development fall back on that because we want to see that. We want to play that too.
Titanfall 2 came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since that one came out. But also, what came out this last weekend was the open beta. We talked about it last weekend, the VIP demo and stuff of Anthem. Well, this week, past weekend, was the open demo for Anthem. And so I finally got a chance to play around in that, and hot damn, is it fun.
So I was unfortunately doing other podcast homework, the stuff that we actually have to talk about today.
Finish that up. Man, I was ahead of you again.
You really were.
I finished up our homework for this week's episode on like Thursday.
Oh my God. You were I finished yesterday. Whoops.
Two times in a row.
2 times in a row.
But I did fly around in the Anthem demo. Fly around. Because I did a lot of flying. Man, that was a good one. And that is honestly like one of the best parts about it.
Is the flying.
The flying, because it's interesting. You don't just hit one button and you take off. Because you have to run on the ground. You have to hit X to jump. Then you have to click the left stick to initialize flight.
Like a duck. Gotcha.
It's pretty sweet. It just because you literally you have that little boost, pause, take off.
I bet that feels great.
It felt good every time.
Oh my gosh.
And then you
sounds
incorporate
fun.
that into the combat where you can be running around the ground shooting people. Then you jump up, fly around, get to a better point, and then you can hover in air, be shooting from down stuff. Oh, mixing your abilities and different things like that. It's a lot of fun. I played with the main javelin class, which is, I'm going blank on it, Hunter, I believe. I don't know. The main one that everybody starts with.
How about we call it like Pew Pew Alpha?
I'm forgetting what it is. But then I did unlock the Colossus also, which is like the big hulking one.
Oh, nice.
To get to run around in that one and see what the difference is.
We'll call that one the Big Daddy suit.
It's Colossus. Although I did see somebody on Reddit, I believe, they posted that they colorized their Colossus to look like a Big Daddy.
That's clearly what they're supposed to look like.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. And I will say, there were still some issues with it. Like, they were having some server issues. I was trying to do, what would be akin to Destiny's Strikes. I was trying to do one of those in Anthem. It's called a Stronghold, similar to a raid. It's not a full-blown raid, but it's just like a special little side mission you could do to get some better rewards and loot and stuff like that. And I kept getting kicked from that, so they'll need to work on that a little bit.
You think that was just a server issue?
I think it was just server issues,
Fine.
It just kept reshutting for everybody, so I'm sure they're still working through some of those issues. I saw somebody else, and then I also agreed, but I probably only noticed it because I saw somebody else tweet this, just another user, talking about how it feels like there were some sounds missing. And I noticed the same thing too. Like when you would salvage gear, it would just end. There wasn't like a breakdown or like a clinking, clanking sound. What you would expect when you would destroy something and it gives you some kind of audible feedback that you did that action. Little things like that, mostly in menus and stuff like that, not necessarily in the actual game. So I wonder again if that will need to be improved also.
I'm guessing the sound probably is there. Maybe there's just something.
Again, like maybe some other glitch that's keeping it from being locked. Because it does feel like a very odd design choice to not include it at all.
That, or BioWare is now having to be like, well, now we got to make clanking sounds because apparently that's what the people want.
Give us what we want. That's what we want. We're the consumer.
They threw all the interns into a room with a bunch of scrap metal and they were like, clank around, guys.
Make some noises. We got to fix this. Jerrett Wilson, he's harping on it. He's honest about this. So I had a ton of fun with it. I am very excited for the last game. It definitely does. Like, I was playing it more. I was like, oh, things would happen. And like when I would finish one of those missions or something, get like a big bunch of loot, I was like, oh, this does feel Destiny. It does definitely feel those feels, but it feels a lot cleaner. It definitely looks prettier than Destiny.
BioWare
Destiny
didn't
has
make
like
Destiny.
No, that was
Okay.
Bungie. Bungie gave, not cartoonish wouldn't be the right way to say it, I would feel like, but Anthem's going for more of a really realistic look. As much as you can, like the sci-fi adventure space that they've created, but still, everything looks like it's a realistic world, whereas Destiny still has a bit more of an artsy feel to it, I would say.
Yeah, not ironically, just with sci-fi based things, I prefer the less realistic look.
Oh, really?
It's like, dude, this isn't Red Dead. I don't want to be able to see every last beard follicle.
See, I kind of like the more realistic look for sci-fi stuff. It makes it feel even more like.
It makes it feel boring.
Real.
I don't like it.
It's awesome.
Gross.
But anyway, had a ton of fun in Anthem and looking forward to playing the main game. Then, last little bit before we get to this, we're getting to that main topic, is that Sony did come out in the last week, announced that they are starting to urge their developers to begin development for PS5 and are even sending over some early test kits for them to work with. And so more stuff coming on that. And this is on the heels of them adjusting their PS Plus offering, which this was like a year ago. They emailed all their PS Plus members. I got this email and they basically said,
man,
hey,
I must have deleted it.
She
don't read those.
She doesn't know what's happening. But Sony basically said like, hey, after March 2019, we're going to end support of PS3 and PS Vita titles in PS Plus.
I remember that.
And I was like, oh, that's a bummer, but not gonna like, I'm not mad about it. It's like, that makes sense. You can't keep this going on for forever. And my whole thing is, if you cut off the ability to have to support these PS3 and Vita games and give you these free offerings to it, then that means you could probably allocate more resources to getting even better PS4 games.
Exactly.
So, you know, I only see that as a benefit. And
stretching
then this month
yourself
is
too
going to be
thin for a dwindling pool is like, that's not good business sense.
In February, they kicked it off like with a pretty strong offering. The free games for PS4, which they're still offering PS3 and PS Vita games, but the PS4 ones for this month are For Honor, which I'm loving, still having a great time in, and the complete first season of Hitman. So this, Hitman 2 just came out, and this is the predecessor to that. And I loved Hitman Absolution as one of that series that I played, and it was a great time. And so I'm like, absolutely, I'll be getting Hitman season 1. So I'm all about it.
Hitman.
Hitman.
It's more
Similar
fun to say.
Pikmin.
Similar to Pikmin.
But yeah, so a lot of great stuff. And on top of all that, they're upping the storage capacity of your cloud.
Now that's good
from
news.
10 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes.
Yeah, that's great news.
A big jump. Like which makes me wonder what they're going to start offering alongside the PS4 games only.
I can finally re-download Metal Gear Solid 5.
Because not only you're not having to only save your save files to this, which, granted, after a while you could accumulate enough save files to hit 10 gigs, but that's going to still take you forever. So why are they giving us 100? I think because they're going to do something more to make your captures a cloud-based feature rather than being saved to your hard drive, which I think would be awesome. Yeah. I would love that feature because it would be awesome to be able to just have a great moment and not have to stick in a USB, a flash drive to do it, or tweet it to social media where you can then download it from there. I'm wondering if they're going to totally reintegrate it with their app, because Xbox actually just did that a couple days ago. They upped their app, and now you can watch all your captures and saves and all that stuff on your phone through a direct Xbox app, and you can't do that on PlayStation yet. So I'm thinking they might be on the same boat and thinking the same thing. So we'll have to wait and see.
Prediction, indeed. Mm-hmm. And thanks to Riven for posting that PS5 news for us on the Discord. Everybody.
And I don't think I did, but speaking of our Discord and Riven, who's a patron, thank you, all of our patrons, for making the show possible week after week. I think I neglected to say that in my intro. Whoops, I'm sorry.
How dare you?
I love you. I do not love you less, patrons. I love you a lot because
in fact, we love you more.
Yeah, every day. But let's jump now to the main event of this episode.
Indeed.
The main attraction. Are we ready to rumble? Yes, we are. And that is a review, because we have played.
And finished.
I
finished it.
The second episode of Life is Strange Season 2.
Episode 2.
Rules. So this is going to be interesting. And I'm trying to think about how the best way to go about this, because obviously, per usual with our reviews, we go over stuff that we can feel is spoiler free, and then we'll jump into spoiler stuff. I have a feeling the spoiler free territory of this episode is going to be pretty short.
I mean, we're already
because it's like we can't really say, well, how does this compare to Life is Strange 1 season, episode 2? We can't really say that as much because obviously the thematic and story elements are different.
They're different. They're entirely different experiences. I think one thing that we maybe should talk about just a little bit before we get into the real game is that. So this is one comparison that you could make with Life is Strange 1. Mm-hmm. The episodes did come out, if I'm not mistaken, approximately a month apart from each other. I think that is correct.
I'm going to do a Google on this.
Because the problem is with Life is Strange 2, 4 months is too long to wait for an episodic game that the new episodes of which are max 2 to maybe 4 hours long.
Yeah.
4 months to wait for that short of a window of gameplay is too long. They should be coming out bi-weekly, once per month.
Because the first episode came out in September.
Yeah, that's
a long
way
time.
too long. I mean, there were absolutely things about the game that I forgot to do. I forgot a lot of the mechanics.
There were 2 months in between the releases of the other ones.
So that's at least more acceptable. 4 months is not
they need to kick it up for between episode 3. I agree. That was way too long of a time. And I didn't feel disconnected from the story, but I definitely felt like...
I felt very disconnected, and I felt like the payoff, at least in terms of this particular episode, was not worth the wait. So we'll talk about that.
We'll get into that a little bit, but I was kind of overall. I think this is a good time. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go ahead and give our overall impressions now, and because that's really all we can do before we start diving into the beats of the story and to why we felt that way about this one. But so I agree. 4 months was a very long time to wait. It kind of came up, and I feel like in general, like the episode released and I heard nothing about it.
No,
I didn't see any hubbub about it online at all. Didn't see people streaming it or doing giveaways to like announce it. It just came and went, and that was that. But I will say, episode 2 in Life is Strange 1, the one correlation or crossover I can make between the two of them is that by the end of episode 1, I remember I was like, okay, I'm pretty into this. I'm excited to see where this is going to... In Life is Strange 1 with Max and Chloe.
Right.
I was like, ooh, okay, because they're sitting up by the lighthouse, and there's like this weird... It started snowing at the end of episode 1, right? Yeah. And there was all this like weird stuff going on with obviously Max's powers, and then all this weird weather and different stuff going on in the actual world too. And it was just so... You in that, and you're like, ooh, there's a lot of mystery here. I'm very curious to see how this goes. Episode 2 ended, and I was like, I am in.
It ramped.
Trying to knock over my microphone
dude, calm
here
down,
with my
Jerrett.
enthusiasm.
I know that our love of Life is Strange is like really
great.
high.
and because, at the end of episode 2, how my ending, and again, episode 1, this Life is Strange, I feel like I can say this without being too afraid of spoilers, but slight spoilers to season 1. It's
really old, people. If you haven't already played it, please do.
Almost 4 years old.
It's amazing.
Oh, wow, it is 4 years old. It came out in January 2015. Oh, my God. But anyway, so at the end of this season 2 of episode 2, God, that's going to be hard to keep track. Episode 2 for me in Life is Strange 1, was when Kate jumped off the top of the building, or you were able to stop her. I stopped her.
I did not.
And you did not.
she lived. she did live.
Wait, she lived in your game too?
I think she goes to the hospital. No, wait, she died.
I was about to say, she should have died,
because
right?
there was a wake on campus.
That's right.
Just
See, I didn't get all that
kidding.
storyline. But anyway, and when that happened, I feel like even though we both got different outcomes, we were still like, oh,
we are invested.
This is going to be good. I can't wait to play these other games. Granted, also, we didn't play them until all 5 episodes were out.
We didn't have to wait. We played the definitive editions, so we could just play all of them back to back.
But I don't feel like I lost anything. If anything, we're avoiding the issue that we're talking about now, that we had to wait 4 months in between the 2 episodes. And so this episode ended, and I was kind of like, eh.
Exactly.
Episode 2 of season 2 rules. It ended, and I was just like,
so like if we were looking at a chart for like our emotions, so with Life is Strange 1, my emotions like, did this move right here? Where they just kept going up. It was just like a very gradual J curve, just up and up and up.
Till you get to episode 4, and then it's like,
yeah, just a straight line, just a straight 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
And with Life is Strange 2, like that first episode was a little bit of interest, followed by a plummet.
Yeah.
I am honestly not feeling super good about episode 2. And
I want to finish the story. Obviously.
I do too. And obviously we bought it already, so I'm going
we're
to finish it regardless.
The story.
But a couple of things that just kind of for me aren't really clicking are, in terms of, you kind of mentioned this, in terms of the mystery, like the mystery of Life is Strange 1, I don't know what the point of Life is Strange 2 really is, because it feels like it's kind of trying to do too much.
I agree with that. I had that same thought.
It feels like it's missing a central story element, which in Life is Strange 1 was Max's powers of time travel. You know, she can turn back time.
But then not only the mystery of her power,
but the mystery of what's going on around
in the world.
them.
And so far, there are consequences that are happening in the world around Sean and Daniel, but nothing to the extent or to the stakes that they were happening with Max and Chloe.
That's definitely something that I feel as well, is that in Life is Strange 2, at least as of episode 2 rules, nothing you do feels like it's having a real impact.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything kind of feels like, okay, I have to make a decision.
But then it still goes in the way that you thought. That
happened
a couple times with me in episode 2. Episode 1, I don't remember that feeling. But episode 2, like there were a couple conversations that I had, and I realized after one of them, I was like, oh, wait. I can already tell where the story's going to go with this moment, and I know I can pick either one of these, but the same thing is going to happen.
Whereas, like with episode 1, for example, of Life is Strange 2, we both got into the gas station altercation, and both of us had wildly different outcomes. Right. And I actually did feel like that was a decision where I was like, oh, this is going to affect stuff further down the line. Again? I beat up that old guy.
Right, and I didn't.
I beat up an old man with my psychic powers.
And did you steal a tin?
And then I stole from him.
Yeah, see, I didn't do that. I was just like, oh man, I don't want to cause any issues. I'm just going to get out. I escaped. This is good. Daniel and I are going to get out of here. We're going. We're fine.
So I think that part of the problem is, that I feel like the story doesn't really know what it wants its central plot point to be about.
Right.
Is it more about Daniel's powers in and of themselves, or is it more about what's going to happen to them with regards to the police?
But then,
and they're not really like fleshing that out too much.
And because on top of that too, I feel like there's also, again, is this main thing going to be Daniel and his powers? Is it going to be the boys escape, and if they eventually wind up getting to Mexico or not? Or is it more of like an overall message about like the racial undertones of our country, especially between like minorities and the police? You know, that was obviously a big thing in that. And then even with the old man at the gas station in episode 1, the political climate of the country, they alluded to that because didn't he say like build that wall? He didn't say Trump's name, but like
he said something to the extent of this is why we need to build a wall or something like that.
So it's like obviously very much taking place in our current political climate. And so it's like, are they trying to make a point about that? But then even in episode 2 now, which they had alluded to with episode 1, now they're starting to throw in a whole lot more. It seems to be throwing the mystery at what happened with Sean and Daniel's mom.
Yeah.
And what's going on there.
So
it's very convoluted at this point.
And they also kind of like tried to weirdly sprinkle in these like kind of religious overtones.
Yeah.
With like the grandmother figure. I was just like, why?
I did not understand what was happening.
Why are you making more layers when you're not like improving upon the ones that you already have?
Not giving us answers.
You're making too many threads and not continuing the ones that you've already started.
Right.
And so far, I just feel like I'm having a lot of trouble caring about Sean and Daniel. Not gonna lie, don't really care about them.
I connected with Max and Chloe so quickly.
I did too. I was like, Max, I love you and I want to protect you. Yeah. I even kind of like your bitchy friend Victoria. She's great.
Oh, Victoria.
Oh, Victoria.
So,
but like with all of the characters in Life is Strange 2, except for the dad, who, as we know, has already met. This isn't a spoiler. We already talked about it.
You know this.
He's
if you're at episode 2, you know what's happened to them.
He's already met his untimely end. He was the only character I cared about, and he's already gone. Yeah. And it's like, cool, super. I don't know what I'm going to do now.
So that probably wasn't the reaction you were expecting us to have about a Life is Strange game.
Because we were really jazzed about it.
Right, and that was honestly my reaction too. It ended, and I wrote it in my notes and everything. I just said overall episode 2 was meh.
So actually,
like, I just don't like. It was okay.
The last spoiler-free thing that I can say about it is that for the first time ever, I really did feel like I was having to do homework. Like when I was playing through it, it took me that long because I had no motivation to want to play it. I was like, man, I really kind of don't want to play this because there were so many other games that I could play, and I was like, oh.
I know, and right now I'm really, especially now because the big releases this year are starting to come out. Well, I have like less than a month because Far Cry New Dawn comes out the 15th. I don't know if I'll get that day one, but it's still there. Like I want to play it, and then Anthem, and then we're rolling into all these other releases of the spring. And I still, because I'm going to for forever, have Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Red Dead hanging over my head.
Bro.
So like, I agree. I'm playing this. Although I will say, this episode seems shorter.
Yeah, it did.
It seemed like it was over quick.
I'm sure this isn't true, but I actually felt like I spent more time in the demo for Captain Spirit than I did in episode 2.
Which I will say, Captain Spirit should have been episode 2.
He should, yes, I think so.
Which, now, another non-spoiler thing, they made this clear before the episode came out, was that this was the episode when The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, which was their demo for season 2, this was the episode where they were going to cross paths. The storyline of Captain Spirit and Daniel and Sean are meeting up in this episode. So we knew that going in too. And that was kind of a letdown.
Well, maybe. So let's go on ahead. I think we can just go on ahead and launch into the spoiler stuff.
So we're going to go ahead and kick off spoiler stuff now. So everybody who doesn't want to know, our overall impressions are that, it's just kind of a letdown compared to what Life is Strange has been in the past, even with episode 1 of season 2 and the whole entirety of season 1. So now if you want to know exactly why we think that, stick around for the spoilers. If you don't, because you want to experience it for yourself, go ahead and pause now. We're sorry to have to see you go, but that's how it goes with these wonderful stories that we love about video games. So, spoilers begin now.
So, let's start with a quick recap of kind of the highlights of what happened.
Where we left them off.
Right. So Sean and Daniel are still in the woods at this point. They've been living in the woods for I think they say 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So they've been out there for about a month. It is by this point winter I think they're in Oregon.
Still in Oregon.
So they're still in Oregon. There's tons of snow on the ground.
Well, I guess not still in Oregon because
they traveled to Oregon from Seattle.
Because you see Arcadia Bay at the end of episode 1 when you're with Brody.
Brody brought them to Portland. Right. Exactly. So Brody's gone. Oh, he was the other
was
character
cool.
that I loved.
Brody.
I hope Brody comes back. Anyways, so they're still in Oregon. They're out in the woods. They've got their puppy Mushroom with them, or other dog name if you chose other.
Change it,
we didn't.
I let Daniel
we don't
go
know
with
what
it
the names
that's what
are.
he wanted to name. I was like, sure.
So the premise is that they've managed to find what appears to be an abandoned summer cabin that some family used to have, but it's looking pretty run down at this point, has no occupants. Mm-hmm. So they use Daniel's powers to break in. They've been crashing in this cabin. It obviously doesn't have running water or electricity, but it has a wood fire stove. Mm-hmm. So they are able to actually get some heat in the place. It's got some canned food,
some comfort
from the previous occupants, so they've got a little bit of food to work off of, and they've been out there basically training Daniel's telekinesis, which is at this point in the episode, I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool stuff.
You want to learn how to control it because you don't know what its full capabilities
are. So at this point, Daniel's powers are looking pretty good. He's able to lift and at least hover very briefly good-sized boulders. Mm-hmm. He can also lift multiple objects at once and keep them all in the air. He demonstrates this with some cans. But in terms of things that are far away, he can't really get that. Doesn't really have the reach quite yet. So he's still working on it, but him and Sean are basically training up his abilities. For what purpose? They don't even know. They just want to be able to control it.
You got it. You got to know.
You got to know how to control it.
Every other instance of Daniel's power at this point had been uncontrolled.
Exactly.
And it resulted in the cop getting killed. And it resulted in episode 1, and then it resulted at the end of episode 1 with him freaking out when he discovered their dad was actually dead and destroying their hotel room.
Exactly.
Which is why I'm assuming they're out on the lam in the middle of the woods because you can't do that to a hotel room and then expect to stay.
Well, it was a motel.
That's true. A little lesser quality.
Hashtag motels rights.
Standard of cleanliness. So, and not long while they're out there, they then decide, okay, we've been here long enough, we need to move on. And that's kind of what eventually sets up the story.
The problem is that Daniel's sick. So Daniel has this recurring cough. I think he's just normal sick.
You think I can't decide if they're trying to say he's normal sick or it's a side effect of him using his ability. Because remember, Max would get the nosebleeds.
Oh yeah, that's true. I actually don't think that's the case.
You think it's just normal sick?
I think
it's winter
normal,
and he's cold.
Exactly. I think the case is that they're literally homeless and they're out in the wilderness and they don't really have that. They don't have good nutrition. Probably not getting good sleep. I think it's probably just normal wear and tear of not having a home.
That's true.
So unlike with Max, I don't think I could be proven wrong, but I definitely didn't get that feeling.
And so the whole point is they need to leave this cabin because they're still trying to make their way to Mexico, where their father's family is. They know from discussions they had in episode 1 that their mother's family is around, and
they live in Oregon.
They live in Oregon, so they're thinking that's part of what Sean's thought process is. We'll stop there. Maybe they'll let us be in for a little bit. We'll be able to, help Daniel because he is starting to get worried about Daniel's cold. And he's like, you know what? I think we need to address this. As big the risk may be, we need to move on to Grandma and Grandpa's, stay with them for a bit, and hopefully they won't turn us in or whatever, and we can continue making our way down to Mexico. But before they get to leave,
Oh, yeah. This was arguably the saddest part of episode 2. I was like, no.
Saddest part of the whole season so far.
So far, except for that time I beat up that old man.
He felt no regrets about it.
No regrets.
Oh,
Fender.
Fender. Just popping his little head in to say hello.
What a silly dog.
He knew what we were going to talk about.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He was watching
I should close the door again. He'll be sad if he hears.
Nah, he left. He's fine.
Close your ears, Fender.
But anyway, this is the one thing that I was like, because they made a point of it. I knew something was going to happen.
The
did. Night before, they made a special deal about noticing that Mushroom needed to go out to pee. And then this morning they made a deal about it again. I was like, oh my God.
Something's going to happen.
And sure enough, Mushroom doesn't come back to the door, so Daniel goes outside to look for him while Sean finishes packing. Look for her while Sean finishes packing up. And then Sean's like, "Why aren't they back yet?" You go out and chase them, and look after him, try to discover everything. You find Mushroom's bandana, a little bit of blood. You're like, "Oh no, what's going on?" And then you walk around this corner. There's Daniel staring down a damn mountain lion that has killed poor Mushroom.
Mushroom is
and
already
I literally
dead.
said, and I wrote it down in my book. What the fuck, Mushroom?
I like how you really ran out of room.
And wrote, what the fuck, Mushroom? Because this was bullshit that this happened.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. So what happens after that is, mountain lions, even if you have psychic powers, are still a big threat.
Yeah.
So, Sean's like kind of freaking out on his own. And so he goes up to Daniel and he's like, basically trying to de-escalate the mountain lion situation.
Right, as one does.
And so Daniel is, of course, in tears. He's enraged. He's freaking out. So he starts to use his powers and lifts the puma off the ground. And it's implied that he's going to kill it.
And this is the first big decision making where pauses the game. You have to make this altering decision in what you're going to do, which is, do you let Daniel kill this mountain lion with his powers, or do you step in and try to scare the mountain lion away?
I stepped in.
Which did you choose? I did too.
Yeah.
I felt like this is the moment where the game was trying to make a point about Daniel's powers, and I felt like as much as I would love to see him do that because of what that mountain lion did to that poor puppy.
What's funny is that I was like, no, that poor mountain lion. It's winter and he's hungry.
Well, that's the part of it too, which I was like, the mountain lion just did what the mountain lion was supposed to do.
It's just now, if that had been a person, I would have been like, let's let him die.
Darth Vader choke his ass, crumble him up into the size of a pebble.
Ball.
But I did that too. But that happened, and I understood it. I understood why they used it in the narrative. But I was also like, why?
I feel like it would have had a lot more impact if they had waited longer for something to happen.
Yeah.
Because at this point in gameplay hours, Mushroom's only been with you for
an hour?
1.5 hours max. So you don't really have had it. She's still even like a puppy. Mm-hmm. She's not even a grown dog at this point. And I feel like after the event was over, I didn't really think about it again.
And
I wasn't tore up about it.
When you have Sean step in to stop Daniel, then it gives you insult to injury and shows the mountain lion carrying Mushroom's body off. And I was like, what the hell?
So if you don't kill the mountain lion, it does get the rest of Mushroom and goes off with it because that's its prey and that's what it does.
And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
You're just, I was just like, what? Because no, that was my thing about this. No, I'll circle back around to this because it will make my point will make more sense later on after we talk about a few more things. So anyway, they're obviously bummed, they're sad. They make it to Grandma and Grandpa's house. Grandma and Grandpa decide not to turn them in, and then they just kind of, and the Grandma and Grandpa are like, you know what, we don't know what happened, but you're also our grandkids, even though we had this stressed relationship with you because of your mom, and we're not really close and haven't been around, but we'll let you stay.
So the backstory is that since Sean was born, these grandparents, Daniel, since Daniel was born, the grandparents have never met Daniel.
Right.
He has never met them. So they've been estranged for at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. So even Sean hasn't seen them in that time. So they're basically just strangers. They are related, but these maternal grandparents are this old, rural, pretty religious white couple, and their sons are, of Latino heritage, and they've been living with their dad their whole lives. They despise their mother, who is no longer around. So it's like,
for some reason.
So it's definitely a not strained relationship at this point, but a kind of a tense one. It's just odd because you don't really know. We don't know how to react around you. Same. We also don't know how to react around you. So it's an interesting situation.
Very much so. And then that's the majority of episode 2 is you spending it time with the grandparents. It does find out, and I did call this, that the old lady that you see at the end of Captain Spirit, when she comes to check on the Chris and his father, it is their grandmother who you saw. So
her name is Claire.
Claire, yes, and Stephen is the grandfather. And then so you do see when Chris falls out of his treehouse, and Daniel's the one who stops him from hitting the ground after he falls out of his treehouse. And so this kind of launches into the other thing where Daniel then becomes friends with Chris, and they're playing and interacting, and another one of the choices that you as Sean make is, do you have Daniel tell Chris about his power, about that it's actually Daniel's power, or do you let Chris, who already thinks he's a superhero, believe that it's him who has the ability?
Yeah.
What did you go with? I'll say this one first. Okay. I went with letting Chris believe it was him.
I did too.
Because that seemed safer. For me and Daniel. It seemed like the safer choice for us.
I wasn't doing it for Chris. I was like, man, because I was torn because on the one hand, I was thinking if Chris thinks he has powers, he might do something to try and use them and get himself into trouble. Mm. But if we tell him we have powers,
then he'll tell his dad.
That's worse for us.
Yeah, and his dad's going to then be, oh, you're the kids from the news that I see.
Exactly.
Which at this point, I also don't understand how no one made the connection. I mean, I know they're in a more rural community, but I would still feel like cop killing teens from Seattle on the run. I feel like that would be making some news.
How frequently do we have actual stories like that happen in the news here, and they briefly show a face, and then 3 weeks later, which is in-game time, you've forgotten all about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I couldn't recognize a single criminal on the news except for maybe Osama bin Laden, and he's already dead.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know. I feel like it would be, in the current media climate, it's very easy to forget these one-off tragedies.
True.
And especially if you're a state away and you don't actually have any personal connection to anyone that was involved with the incident, unlike the grandparents do. Mm-hmm. Of course you'd forget. You've got your own stuff going on. So I was thinking, yeah, they're probably okay. If they had grown their hair out and maybe worn hats or something, they would have been fine.
That's true. So you go on living for I think it's a week or so that you're at the grandparents' house, and you're just living with the grandparents, going through normal life. You interact with Chris. You go by with them into town to go buy a Christmas tree, which I thought was a risky move.
I know. I was like, what a couple of idiots.
That was one of the points where I knew my choice, where I felt like my choices in the conversations didn't matter.
Because I did try to steer it to, no, we're not going into town.
And it still just resulted in that.
And it still happened.
And I was like, okay, so this means something bad is going to happen at the climax of this episode, which is going to propel us into the next episode as well. So then I'm already thinking, what could that possibly be? And obviously I knew it would have to be some kind of confrontation with police, which does eventually happen. They come up to the door because then another moment that was alluded to, that's what I mean. Everything felt like I was able to see where this was going to go. Yeah. I knew something was going to happen with Mushroom. I knew them going into town was going to lead to a further conflict with police in this town, and that was going to lead to something bad. And then when you're talking with Steven, the grandfather, at one point, as Sean in his workshop, he mentions that this old dresser armoire that he has in there has a busted up leg. And then sure enough, you wind up getting into it with the grandparents because especially with the grandma, don't seem to mesh that well, which also the grandma was a very annoying character.
I know, she was
incredibly annoying.
So the thing, we're skipping a lot
We are, because again, I don't want to go into the minutia of it, just for me, these are the bigger points.
Right, but so there's actually, so I didn't realize that this was a decision that would show up at the end of the episode. I should have assumed as much because it had two parts to it. So when you get there the first night, Sean and Daniel get there and the grandparents take them in.
Yeah.
You're basically talking to your grandma on your bed right before you guys go to sleep, and she's deeply religious. So she's like, all right, let's pray.
Yeah.
And you as Sean can say, yeah, I'll pray with you, or no, I won't. And I was like, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You said no? I said yes.
I was like, I'm not going to pray with you, lady. A bunch of crap has happened to me. So I said no, but I also didn't realize that whether or not Daniel chooses to pray is a decision that comes up at the end of the game. Oh. Did you see that?
I did see that, but I didn't notice it as being a thing as a result of my question.
I don't think it was a result of you. I think it's a result of stuff that you've decided with Daniel up until now. And I actually was wondering, okay, if I had made different decisions, what would those have been that impacted this particular scenario?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. But ultimately, I didn't feel like it had that much impact, because even if you say, no, I'm not going to pray with you, the grandma doesn't get mad. She's just like, okay. But then Daniel did say, yeah, sure, I'll pray.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, I didn't have that same interaction. I said yes because I was just like, we're here in their house. I don't want to make waves. I feel like we're still trying to be under the radar here, so I'm not going to make grandma mad.
I was like, I'm my own boy.
Because you don't know the relationship necessarily between the grandparents and Sean and Daniel, because it could be tense as well. I mean, obviously there's already some tension, so you don't know if you sit telling grandma, no, I'm not going to pray with you. She's going to be like, well, I'm calling the police on your ass. You don't know.
I was pretty sure she wouldn't. So
I know. I was like, too. But I was still like, you know what? I'm not going to mess with this. And that was the other thing. Like when they get to the house for the first time, it's kind of alluded to as like another thing of the grandma, that she's a clean freak. Like everything has to be clean. And so that makes her like an uptight, tense person or something like that. And like when you get there, she's all like, you should have taken better care of Daniel. He's sick. And it's like, what would you want me to do?
I know. It's like, I feel like there was never a full like they seem to be completely clueless about the fact that we've been homeless for a month.
Which
we've
I
been
guess
living
like she
in
could
the
still
woods.
get mad at him at that, but the alternative is turning themselves into police for
Yeah,
something
and
they
it's
didn't
like,
do.
okay, what do you want me to have done?
Exactly.
Put us up in a Hilton?
Right, which at least Steven, the granddad, was being very understanding and a lot more accommodating on this kind of stuff. But it was, I don't know, the dynamic of the grandparent characters was weird.
It was weird because, especially from the side of the grandma, it felt like she was really blaming you for like
everything.
Stuff that was super out of your control.
Like
and it's
with the mom and everything. Like,
yeah.
But then Daniel or Sean seems to be blaming the grandma for the stuff that happened with the mom. So we at this point still don't know if the mom's alive.
I think
she's alive. She's alive because they find like the letter and stuff.
Alive.
That's right. So she's obviously going to be a point in this at some part. I don't know
you
what
ready
that's
for
gonna
my hot conspiracy?
Okay, go for it.
So what I think the mom is eventually going to show back up, or Sean and Daniel are going to find her. And I think the reason she left them in the first place is because she has powers.
Oh.
I think she was telekinetic and she was having like the same breakdown that Daniel is, but because she was an only child, she had no one to share her problems with. So I think that when she got to adulthood and probably still couldn't control her powers very well, and also had kids and then had a baby, I think she was like, I can't do this. And I think that's probably at least part of why she ran away.
Makes sense.
Because basically what happened is their mom, Karen, just left them.
Yeah.
She was married to their dad and she was like, you know what? Peace out. So she just flat out abandoned them, presumably to travel the world. But my thinking is that's a front. She has powers.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
That's what I think is going to happen.
I bet you're on track with that.
I think Steven has powers too.
Maybe.
Just kidding. He doesn't.
Maybe. I don't know.
He does not.
So you do wind up having a conversation with Steven where he seems to ask, he's like, I've noticed some weird things about Daniel. This is the same conversation where you talk about the armoire with the bad leg on it and everything. And I chose to hide the secret from the granddad. I chose to
tell him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, he seems cool. I'll tell him.
So what was his reaction?
His reaction, that is what he was
his was just when he
about.
asked me, was he just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just imagining things.
Yeah, so he does phrase it very ambiguously when he starts the conversation. He pretty much just says, I've noticed some things. And, I'm thinking, okay, that could either be that he's noticed the powers or that he's noticed something else.
Yeah.
And if I start out with, oh yeah, those powers, and then he's like, the what now?
What? The what?
A big part. That's how I thought the conversation might go, but no, if you choose, yeah, I'll tell him the truth. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. So he has, probably out of the corner of his eye, because Daniel's not being super reserved with his powers.
No, he's really not. He's being what you would expect a 9-year-old kid. Yeah, 9-year-old kid with these powers would be doing.
I mean, anytime he thinks people aren't looking, like even if it's just that their back is physically turned, he uses those opportunities to flex his powers, basically.
He was doing it in front of Chris, but right before they went to the shop for the Christmas tree, he's like doing it in Chris's living room, making Chris think he has this ability, which again, nothing wrong with making Chris think he saved himself from falling from the tree, but then to continue to build up this fallacy in his mind that he has these superpowers, like that's like, you're pushing the wrong buttons here, Daniel.
He's making all the wrong moves. So basically, where was I going with this? So anyways, I told the grandpa that it was real, and he basically is just like, man, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to say anything. Even though at one point he was like, I think he needs to see a doctor.
Yeah.
And Sean, of course, is like, no. And the grandpa's like, yeah, you're probably right. They'd probably put him in an institution. So basically, Steven just says, all right, I'll keep your secret. I don't really get it, but don't tell your grandma. She's super religious. She will think he's from Satan. Yeah. He doesn't say those exact words, but that's the gist.
Right. So in mine, I basically said, no, he doesn't have, because at this point, I was like, I don't trust these people necessarily.
I trusted Steven immediately.
I wanted to trust Steven, but I was just like, I don't know.
Like trains too, old man.
So anyway, that's when all the conversation where that happens. And basically, he just was like, oh, maybe I'm just seeing things. And later on in the game, what starts the fight with the grandma at the end?
So the thing is,
I don't remember exactly.
So real quick, I just want to backtrack to when they go into town, because that is actually kind of an important point for a different reason.
Oh, see, that part, I was just like, this is a random side thing that's just setting up the conflict later at the end.
See, I actually didn't think that it really had much to do with the conflict at the end. I think that, so at the very end of the episode, somebody calls the police and notifies them that Sean and Daniel are at the grandparents' house.
I think it was the grandma.
I don't think it was the grandma. I also really don't think that it had much to do with them going into town. I'm sure that someone just saw them, because even in the yard, they really kind of weren't being that secretive. So I think someone just saw them at one point and someone called the cops. But while they're in town at this Christmas tree sale place, they do encounter this homeless girl / young woman.
Oh.
Yeah, her name is Cassidy. She's got like purplish pink dreadlocks with like the shaved undercut sides. I saw her and I was immediately like, I don't like you. She's such a tryhard. I hate that look. Anyways, some people might like it, but she's basically also homeless.
It's not even hipster, really.
She's playing a guitar for money, and she is nice though. And I kind of liked her personality. It's just her like aesthetic. I was like, I don't like you.
Not about this look.
No, I don't like this look. But she's really nice. She sings a song, and like Sean can choose to give her money or something. They have a conversation. She's basically telling Sean that, hey, I'm also homeless. They kind of start talking about it. They're both like, yeah, we're not really from around here. Me and my homeless friends, Cassidy is saying, basically ride the rails. We hop trains to different places so that we can get basically odd transient jobs. And I was like, okay, I think I see where this is going. So that is an important setup point for episode 3, which there is a very brief kind of like next time on scene after the end credits that alludes to Cassidy being a bigger part of episode 3. So, but anyways, I just wanted to point that out from them going into town because it was kind of important.
That's true. That's true. I hadn't quite remembered the impact of that part, because then that also, they have a small, Cassidy and her friend have a small altercation with one of the other shop owners at this holiday
But
fair.
you're just observing.
You're just observing in this. You're not involved in it at all. Then you grab her pick, and it's one of the optional collectibles that you found. Yeah. I missed all but one.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I missed all of them but one.
I think I missed all of them.
No. Oh, sorry. No. I got them all except one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I assumed you meant. Anyways.
But anyway, so let's go ahead and jump into the end and like this climatic.
So I wanted to basically back to your original question of what sets off the fight with Claire and Steven.
Oh, that's right.
When Sean and Daniel get home from the market, Claire and Steven are still at church, so they're basically home alone. And the entire episode, Daniel's never met his mother, knows nothing about her. Naturally, he wants to know about her, so he's like, I want to go into her locked bedroom. I want to go in there. And, Sean's kind of like worn down. He's like, okay, we'll go in there, but it's locked, so Daniel has to
And this was another point where your conversation choices didn't matter. You're still going to go inside that room.
You're still going in that room, which I get it, you have to, but
then why give me the option for choices?
Why give me the option? It felt like, why present these things as choices when they're really not, and they're not having any impact. But anyways, cut to the bedroom. Daniel busts it open with his powers. The door doesn't explode.
Oh, I found a key.
But where'd you find the key?
In Claire's cardigan. That was in the bathroom in the dirty clothes basket.
Oh, you clever son of a bitch.
I'm not using his powers for unnecessary reasons.
So I searched the bedroom all over. I found the key to the vanity. There was no key in there, so I was like, oh, the game wants me to use his powers to open the door. No, man, that sucks. So anyways,
that's not right
in mine, they use his powers to bust the door open. And it kind of like blows out the jam, of course, of the door.
Right.
But they get in there. Sean and Daniel are just looking around. Daniel's Daniel's making comments on all the things that, because it's their mom's teenage room, basically. So they're just looking around, but then Sean finds a very recent letter from their mom, Karen, basically to the grandparents saying, hey, I saw what happened on the news. If my sons ever come to you, the grandparents, please help them, blah, blah, blah. So they find this letter. They know their mom knows that they're still out there. They know that she knows what's going on.
Also, what the hell, Karen? Why haven't you come out to...
What the hell, Karen? And she includes kind of a cop-out in her letter of, hey, if you want to contact me, you can reach me at a P.O. box. So P.O. boxes, as most people do know, aren't really an address. It's just a post office box. So it's often what people use if they want to still be able to receive mail, but not have people know anything else about them, like phone number, where they live, etc.
Right.
So they have a loose lead about where their mom is and really nothing else. So then, basically, as they're reading this letter, Stephen and Claire get home. They come upstairs, find, in my case, the busted open door.
See, so that makes it like they were really freaking out about them going through their room and everything. And I was like, calm down. We're just going through our mom's stuff.
In mine, it was a little bit more. It was a little bit more sense.
That makes more sense why they were so upset. I was like, but I used a key.
So Stephen, for his part, he's not really upset. He is kind of maybe a little angry, but Claire is the one who's freaking out. She's like, how dare you come in here? And it's like, it's our mom.
Yeah.
It's our mom. We have a right to know about her life. And
I understand it's their house, but like there's that level. But still, again, I didn't understand the full why she got so angry about it.
I just feel like
other than misplaced anger at Karen.
Yes. I do think that that's probably a big part of it, because the Claire and Stephen, at least Claire, they have done everything possible to basically obliterate their daughter from their lives, because when she left everyone, including her parents. And Claire, at least, I think is very scarred by this. Stephen still keeps a few pictures hidden of Karen from Claire. So we know that Stephen still has a soft spot for his daughter. He's not probably tried to erase her from their lives quite as much, but Claire definitely has. So that's when they're having this big argument. They're basically just going at it, and then they hear Stephen go downstairs because he's like, I can't deal with this anymore, and then the armoire falls on him.
Which was like, again, I was like, okay, that's going to happen. So that's when I chose to show Daniel's power to them.
I did too. Yeah. So we both had Daniel use his power to lift the armoire off of Stephen so that you could drag him out from under it.
Without getting him hurt, which is apparently in the stats. If you just all pick it up, it like hurts his leg.
Yeah. So if you choose not to use Daniel's powers and you all lift the armoire and then drag him out from under it, because of the angle, it injures one of his legs.
Right.
So in both our cases, we didn't do that.
And then I even think Claire wasn't as upset. Like, she was also like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? But I don't feel like she was more just relieved that Stephen was okay. I don't think she was mad, or like, I feel like that was the best way to introduce the ability to Claire.
And I feel like she kind of instantly wrote it off as a miracle, which for people that are deeply religious, I feel like that's one of the easiest ways that they can make sense of things in their minds, like, oh, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
So it's like, sure, lady, whatever you
want.
I mean,
you hear that story all the time of like a car tipping over on somebody, and then like one person like suddenly being able to like lift this car off.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, sure, whatever you want. So yeah, even she's clearly very alarmed, but there's a lot of emotions happening. And right at the end of that altercation, the police show up. It's the sheriff. He's at the door. Yep. He's like, we know you're home. We know Sean and Daniel are here. So Claire's basically like, oh my God, you boys have to run. So she distracts the police while they gather their bags and basically go out the back and try to escape.
But then are completely dumb about it, because they go out the back, but then for some reason still cross to the front of the house.
Why would they go into the road? They know the police are out there.
That was the dumbest
infuriated.
thing.
I was like, why wouldn't you
just go into the woods that are obviously right there behind you?
They literally have forests all around.
But they go out the back door to escape the police that are in the front, but then still loop around to the front, to the road. It made no sense.
Daniel, I can understand doing that, but Sean should know better.
Right.
What were they
That was so
thinking?
dumb.
So anyways, they're out there standing in the middle of the road.
Like being like, oh, do they see us?
Yeah, and of course one of the other cops that has just shown up in his car does see them. He puts on the flashers, starts coming at them, and then Chris... I think this happens from Chris in his Captain Spirit outfit. He runs out into the middle of the road and does like the hand motion to pretend that he's going to stop the car.
He has the powers.
And of course, Daniel, depending on what you chose, throughout your decisions in the game, he either moves the car out of the way with his powers and it crashes into a tree, or this didn't happen to me, but in some circumstances, Chris just gets hit by the car.
Happened to me.
Oh my God.
Chris got hit by the car.
He got hit by the car?
Following up my second then big note in this.
Does he die?
In this one. What the fuck, Chris? In all caps.
So does he die?
I have no idea.
Oh my, I bet he's just injured, but still.
He's got to be injured. And so I was like, what the hell is going on in this episode?
That's amazing. I wasn't sure if we were going to have that radically different of circumstances.
So that does make me, what happened then? Because it didn't even give me the option to try to save Chris.
There was no option. Daniel acted on his own in mind and basically a cutscene to just move the car off the road.
So what choices then did you make that made that change? Because like I kept it hidden from, it made sense in my head why it happened, because Chris like, I assume just like by making Chris feel like he doesn't have the ability, whereas I made him feel like he does, so he thought he could stop this cop car, so he jumped in front of it. But so it made sense why it happened.
I don't think it had to do with Chris. I think it has to do with Daniel and the decisions that you make with Daniel up until that point. Because in all of my conversation points with Daniel, I almost always caved, and he was like, well, what if it's a last resort? I was like,
but that's what I told him at the beginning of the game when they're having that conversation. I said, use it as a last resort.
Well, then did you? Oh, so I think there was more than one.
Yeah,
though.
there were multiple
a couple
points.
Of them,
I know, because like after he saves Chris, they have a talk about it in the backyard. And in that same one, I was still like, dude, like we need, in my head, it was always our safety is priority, but understand that if you need to use it, use it. So I didn't understand why that happened. There was the option where
we must have just made just the right amount of different choices to have it go one way or the other. Because in mine, Daniel's like, powers all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, at least that kid's probably not dead now. But
so he could be dead for mine.
He might be dead. He might just be injured, or he might be dead.
He's injured.
Yeah.
But I don't know, at this point, they killed off a puppy in like 2 seconds. So, I mean, or they don't care about a little kid.
Real quick, when Daniel sweeps the car off the road and Chris obviously lives, he does turn around and he sees Daniel making the motion of having done the powers. And it is heavily implied that he realizes, I don't have powers, Daniel does.
Okay. So in mine, he gets hit. They're both like, Chris! Then they run off and jump on the train and then takes off, which obviously alludes back to his conversations with Cassidy. And they get on to their new location. And that is that, basically. But so that's what I mean about going back to the thing that I want to talk about with the tragedies and like the killing of Mushroom and stuff like that. I understand Chris's tragedy could be averted, but also having both those things happen in this same episode felt like they were having tragedies happen to have tragedies happen, not necessarily put the story forward in any way.
Yeah, I feel like Chris's interaction at the end should have been the only one. I think Mushroom still should have been around so that Mushroom could be part of a bigger decision later on in the game where it would have more emotional impact.
Or you make a bigger deal out of the decision where it was with. So take the same decision thing that you did with the cougar and apply it to the policeman at the end, trying to save Chris. That would have been way more impactful than having to do that with Mushroom at the beginning of the game, I think.
Exactly.
So it just, I don't know, just the whole episode felt off. Like, and they're even like, if it's any testament to it, like I completely forgot the whole interaction with Cassidy. So it's just like, I was just basically kind of playing through it in auto mode because I was just
too.
like,
Yeah, I just wasn't interested. I didn't feel invested. I just made decisions. Not going to lie, I made a lot of my decisions based on which one do I think Jerrett didn't pick.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I definitely want us to have like different experiences.
Well, so far we're doing good. Like
we're
our episode
doing
twos for both seasons now have ended opposite.
very differently. So at the end of mine then, because Chris didn't get hit by the car, Sean and Daniel are having a heart-to-heart basically on a log as they wait for the train to pass. Mm-hmm. And in mine, it does kind of end on more of an upbeat note because Daniel's like, Chris is so mad at me now. He knows that he doesn't have powers. Like, he's really upset about it just because he thinks that Chris is mad at him.
Like, dude,
but in
Chris
yours, I think it's different, right? That conversation
Yeah, it's just a whole thing of like, you couldn't, it was more of like, you couldn't have helped him. Like, you know.
Yes, you could have. You have powers, you fool.
But still, it just was a very brief, just like, oh man, that sucks. And then they get on the train and all that stuff. But yeah, I was just like, okay. And then, do we want to talk at all about the teaser for episode 3?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I feel like it brought up again more problems for me than it was.
I agree.
Than it being inside to kind of continue this disjointed storyline.
Yes. So at the teaser at the very end of the episode, which it's basically what's going to happen next on episode 3. There's no people shown, but you hear voices, and you basically see this rising camera image over a marijuana field, presumably in Humboldt, California, which is where Cassidy told Sean they were going next. Right. So basically what's happened is you learn from the rough conversation you have that Sean and Daniel, more likely Sean than Daniel,
right,
have gotten a temporary position working on a marijuana field in the middle of California.
Which,
with
again,
Cassidy and probably her boyfriend / traveling companion,
right,
douchebag McDouchey face. I didn't like him either.
Yeah,
I disliked him more than Cassidy.
But, so here's the thing. Obviously, and this is where I mean by it brought up more problems for me than being like, ooh, where's this going to go? Because you either then have to assume that, A, these people are working as part of an illegal operation, which is what I would assume that where this is going. It's going to be an illegal operation, being that California now, it's, medicinal and recreational. It's okay. So why would they need, that wouldn't be as big of a plot point if it was a legal pot farm, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, wait, so are they now going to try to tackle the war on drugs?
I know, right? So honestly, when I saw the weed field, I was like, my eyes just rolled so far into my head. I was like, this is so stupid. Yeah. It's just another layer of them trying to do too much that I guess they feel is edgy. And it's like, bruh,
yeah,
come on.
The biggest things for me, and the biggest differences I think with this season so far as compared to 1 is 1 was just the perfect blend of the supernatural with everyday life.
Exactly.
This one, and then you were just part of this weird crime story, like time travel-y crime story that resulted as a result through that season. And it was a great time. It was a great story, incredibly engaging. It was real enough, but then also not real enough. It was real enough and not real enough to make this nice blend where it still felt believable. And then also just with how the writing and the setting, it definitely felt more like what I told Sam is I feel like it's that Riverdale, what's the word?
I don't watch
reboot
Riverdale.
Of the Archie comic series,
gotcha.
and all that stuff, and how it's more like gritty, dark feel. It's it kind of attributed itself to Life is Strange. I kind of got that same feel and all that stuff from it. And so it felt like a drama that you might see similar to Riverdale. And I don't know, just everything about it clicked. Characters and all this stuff clicked.
Character interactions actually felt like they had impact.
Right.
Every decision you made felt like it had impact.
This one felt like you would just breeze through decisions until you had to make the game altering decisions.
Yeah.
And then even then, what were they going to do different? I don't know. This one just feels like it's trying to tackle too many things and tackle too many points, and it hasn't found that mystery to keep us hooked, to keep coming back episode for episode.
And this is another thing that I do want to touch on, because at least with Chris's storyline, I found this infuriating. I don't know how they're going to basically circle back to Chris, because you might remember, they're probably not. So you might remember at the end of the demo for Chris, his whole thing is that he's fighting this supervillain named Mantroid, which we learn at the very end of the demo is actually a shortened form of the street intersection of meteor and asteroid or something to that extent that makes Mantroid.
Right.
And it's implied that something more than just an accident happened to Chris's mom.
So maybe the two moms stories.
Maybe
That's
so.
the only thing I can make there too. And then also too the whole storyline with Chris's dad being a piece of shit and beating on Chris and being there's a whole they should not have done Captain Spirit demo the way they did Captain Spirit demo, because that just again, I don't know what's going on, but as we talk about this more, I'm just seeing more and more things. And I'm just what happened from season 1 to season 2?
It's just too many loose threads, and none of it feels like it's actually going anywhere. Maybe, who knows? Maybe episode 3
do have this plan,
is
and
going
it
to
all
wrap
comes
this
together.
all up, and our faith will be restored. But at this point, I'm honestly not feeling too good about it.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I kind of feel I'm still I didn't hate the time that I spent playing it.
I did.
But I was just I'd rather be playing something else. And I think that speaks a lot.
Kind of as a side note to that, I think part of it is that because you are not Daniel, using Daniel's powers is nothing. I mean, when it came to Max, it was a big deal that you like had time-altering powers. And it was awesome to be able to just go back at will and redo things. Whereas with Daniel, his powers don't feel like a fun or engaging mechanic.
Right.
Maybe because you're not the one using them, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just not something that I'm like, oh, cool, I get to use my powers now. It's more like, oh, God, here we go again.
Yep.
So just none of it's really clicking for me at this point.
Me neither. Which is a shame because of how much we loved up season 1. But also, then that just helps season 1 be that much more special to us, though.
Yes,
so,
exactly. So now when we go back and replay Life is Strange Episode 1,
we're going to be like, oh, my God. If we would have known what we had.
Had we only known.
What we had in this glorious moment, we would have enjoyed it even more.
I hope I get like hit in the head and get amnesia, and then I can go back and play Life is Strange 1 again and have it all be new.
I do wonder, and I wouldn't put it off at all at this point, of being some weird thing. I'm wondering if they're going to try to interconnect seasons 1 and 2 anymore than they already did with just that brief like stopover on the scenic overlook outside of Arcadia Bay where you see it. Like, I'm wondering if that's going to be the only tie-in. As weird as this one's being with its many different threads, like, I kind of feel like they could. I actually had a good analogy for this. Life is Strange right now for me is doing the exact same thing that True Detective did. True Detective season 1 came out.
I don't know what that is either.
It was incredible. Everybody loved it because of its weird plot lines and misdirections and everything that ultimately culminated in an incredibly good story. Season 2 came out and they tried to do the exact same thing and it fell so flat that people were like, oh, the series is dead. And then now we're sitting back again with season 3 of True Detective, and it seems by all appearances, I haven't watched it yet, but everything I've heard about it says that it's really good. But that's kind of, I'm like, oh my God, Life is Strange is pulling a True Detective right now because it did so well at the first season. And then the second season is a garbled mess.
Yeah, exactly. It did feel like a garbled mess. Absolutely. So unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. I mean, we went into this really wanting to love all of it, and hopefully, I'm not writing off the season as a loss.
No,
like you said, there is plenty of
we've got
chance that they will tie this all together.
That somehow maybe can make it work. But again, if I have to wait another 4 months for the next one to come out, that sucks.
That does
that
suck.
really sucks. And I hate episodic gaming, and nothing will make me like it.
Yep. I agree. It's not great. It's not a great way to go. I appreciate the effort, but honestly, though,
I don't appreciate the effort.
Let's just go back.
Make it one game.
Let's go back.
One game.
I appreciate trying new things. Let's go back to single all at once, please.
Please.
Thank you.
Please.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this recap and review of Life is Strange Season 2, Episode 2 Rules. And we would love to know what your thoughts are if you have played the episode yet. So send those our way at teamchatpodcast@gmail.com or comment in the comments below on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. It's all there. You can reach us there. Please let us know. Or over in our Discord channel. Get a little discussion going on there. But before we go, we do have to do our soundtrack spotlight for this week, which I'm going to use the one that I was going to use last week, Brandon's suggestion from Resident Evil 2. It is Mr. X's theme by Shusaku Uchiyama from Resident Evil 2, the remake. I listened to this one.
Nice.
It's dark. It's brooding. I love it.
I love it.
So, again, that is the Mr. X theme from Resident Evil 2, the remake. But with that concludes this episode of Team Chat Podcast. I almost said Life is Strange Season 2.
We are the Life is Strange.
But so, thanks for sticking around for this episode of Team Chat Podcast. Come back next week for another brand new episode as we talk about more fun gaming topics. Until then, we'll see you all next time. Stick around for the song.